Tim Ferriss obviously has a very popular show.
Right.
It kind of cracks me up because he was popularized with a book called The 4 Hour Work Week. And now when you think about just his recording a podcast, it has to be a lot more than 4 hours a week and doing all that prep. But so, yeah, I mean, I think like if you were doing a corporate podcast where you really want everyone to sound great, by all means, send a mic in the mail, right? Help them set it up and that sort of thing. Some podcasters like to do a pre-call with the guest. And in some cases, they're kind of doing that to screen to make sure that the person has a good technology setup, that sort of thing. Guests, the more hoops you make them jump through, the less likely they're going to be willing to be on your show. But for the most part, the host has the upper hand there. So I think you're okay asking for someone to do that. But, again, if you're comfortable with the person, their background, you've heard them on a podcast before, that's probably not necessary to do.
Right. And what do you recommend around having multiple people on a podcast? So either as two hosts, sometimes
Sure.
you see that, or two guests. What are the challenges and what do you need to be thinking about?
Sure.
That format?
So I like the two host model. That's what my wife does. And she and her co-host are banter off each other and it sounds great. I do solo, but sometimes I have a guest on and I'm really just bringing up topics kind of like we're co-hosts and I think they go great. With having two guests, the thing you need to think about. So at that point, you're at 3 people, at least on the mic, you and the 2 guests. If their voices sound similar, like let's say you have 2 men or 2 women with very similar voices, sometimes you need to say, prompt who is going to answer that question. And so you might need to think about that up front and let them know, like, okay, Jane, what do you think about this? That sort of thing. Or have them say, oh, this is Jane or this is Susan, that sort of thing when they prompt. If their voices are pretty similar. And sometimes you'll ask a question and both of them are waiting for the other person to answer, right? And so that can get a little complicated, but that's where editing comes in, right? You need to edit your show and you can edit out that awkward thing where Jane tells Susan, oh, you take that one or something like that.
Right. And you did mention about recording, but some people do live podcasts, don't they?
Yes, a lot stream it and then record it. Right. So I think 2 of the big changes over the past couple of years, a lot more video because people are comfortable with Zoom, which is what we're using right now. Whereas podcasts before were just audio. Right. And then, a lot of live streaming as events went online that have been turned into recorded podcasts. And so that's one thing that you do need to understand up front. And as the host, it's your responsibility to educate or tell the guest. As a guest, if you don't hear from the host about that, you should ask them.
Right. And you mentioned earlier about the one sheet. What else should a guest be doing to increase the chances that they're going to get accepted as a guest for a podcast?
Yeah. So one of the things when you pitch and put this on your one sheet, tell the host what you'll do to help promote the show after you're on it. So hosts, again, one of the reasons there are 2 reasons they want you as a guest on. One, they want the good content. They think you'll be a great guest and that their audience will enjoy it. And the other is that as a guest, you can help introduce the podcast to the guest audience, right? And so if you're upfront about that, say like, yeah, I'm going to post this on my social media and I have 50,000 followers, or I'm going to email it to my list of 10,000 people, something like that. That'll really get the attention of the podcaster. Because again, most of them are struggling to get a lot of downloads. And so they need to do everything they can, right? A full court press to try to get, as large of an audience as they want.
And what happens if you don't have that? If you don't have the social media following, maybe you're a newer business
so I would look at what you do have, right? It might not be social media, but you probably have an email list, or, even if you don't have a lot of followers on social media, you can still say, hey, I'm going to post this to Twitter 3 times after I'm on it or something like that. And, then, so you're focusing less on the size of your audience and more on, hey, I'm going to put some effort into this.
Right. Actually, one of your guests that I got through podcastguest.com was he promised he was going to post it 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So he was saying, as my audience grows, you're going to get more exposure.
That was a great thing for someone. That's a really good one. I'm going to take note of that one.
And what about the pitch? What are the things that you should and shouldn't be saying as a
Right.
guest?
So, well, include that, what you're going to do to help in the pitch. The key is to be customized in your pitch. So, I don't know about you, but I get these emails all the time. Hi, our CEO would like to be on your podcast. And it's, an environmental or, something just completely off base. Right. And so
Yeah.
they're just spraying these out there, hoping one sticks. And people know that. Or, hey, I listened to a couple episodes and I thought it was great. Really? You listened to a couple episodes and you're in the waste management business? And what does that have to do with this? Um, so if you do listen to an episode or two, which will really help uh, tell the person that you're very interested, be specific about, I liked this discussion with so and so about this, so that they know that you actually did listen to some episodes. And then, yeah, you want to be specific there. If you can find them some way other than just email, like maybe start interacting with them on Twitter or LinkedIn, and then you're like, hey, if you ever want to talk about this, so find a few different avenues in.
Mm.
And then, so yeah, it's all about I can presenting yourself as someone who can really educate their audience or entertain their audience, and then you'll help them afterward. I do see, so some people that use podcastguest.com, when they pitch, they copy and paste the same pitch every time. And then they say, man, I've only gotten one booking and I submitted 10 pitches. And then I go back and look at their pitches and I'm like, well, you're submitting the same thing every time. So think about from a podcaster perspective, they're only seeing that pitch once, but if you're not customizing it to them, it's not going to come across as if you're really interested in their show.
Right. It's the same as any marketing
Absolutely.
message.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes total
And, and
sense.
and follow-up's important too, right? In the PR business, it's a lot about follow-up, and that's effectively what you're doing here. So if you don't get a response the first time, maybe you try a different avenue. Maybe you try, going the social media route or something like that.